Hey, everybody. Good morning. It's Elizabeth Cronus McLaughlin. It's Resistance Live for the 23rd of March, 2020. We're a little better set up here now than we were last week. Thank you all for your understanding about all of this and everything else. I hope you're all hanging in there. This week is going to be a really bad week. I think we all know that already. I'm going to be here every day, and I hope you will be too. Just so everyone is aware, it feels important for me to say this, so I'm just going to say this. The thing that we all need to be mindful of is this is a week where we're really going to see the number of cases as well as the number of deaths skyrocket by every predictive measure. Some of that is because more people are being tested in terms of the total number of positive cases, but we're also now at the point where, the trajectory that seems to be pretty clear is that exposure to 3 weeks after that is really when we start to see the most significant health concerns. So I just want to, I wanted to come on here and just share a practice really quickly that we have used in the Haven program that we are using this year in healing the heroin. That was taught to me by a woman by the name of Donna Halit, who is she's a grief counselor, basically. And it feels like a moment where we all are really going to need some practices to cope with loss and to cope with grief. So this is something that I ordinarily only really share in our programs, but it feels to me like it's a strategy right now that will benefit everybody in the community. And so as I was kind of waking up this morning and thinking about this myself, I thought I would share it. For those of you who have been in our recent programs, this will be familiar to you. The practice is called a grief bowl practice. And basically to do this, all you really need is a bowl of water. And again, I encourage you to make this a ritual that is meaningful to you. So, I have all these chalices and things that I use for all of my woo rituals that I do here at home. But again, this is also something you can share with your families because it's really helpful in terms of offloading grief. So you need a bowl. You fill the bowl with water. And then you need something, stones work really well for this, that you set to the side of the bowl. You can use crystals for this if it's kind of your thing, as long as they're not like selenite that's going to dissolve in water. Stones are great. Glass is great. Anything that is not going to dissolve. And you set it next to the side of the bowl. When you are feeling overwhelmed or as though you kind of can't handle or process what is happening, the way that you use the grief bowl is this. You pick up a stone or whatever it is that you are using as your objects for your grief bowl. Shells also work really well for this, like seashells. And you hold it in your hand and you intentionally aim to put your grief into that object. And then you can drop the object into the grief bowl and let the grief be processed in that way. Now, this may feel like a woo practice, but I will just tell you that the grief counselor that I learned this from has used this with like huge groups of people who are mourning the loss of spouses, family members, children, who have lived through a trauma where they've lost loved ones en masse. This practice works very well to help you process the grief that you are experiencing. And, I will just tell you, this also works really well for children. So if you have kids who are really struggling with loss, they're struggling with the loss of their school, they're struggling with the loss of their constant contact with their classmates, this grief bowl practice works very well to help to give them a structure to release grief. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then the way that we normally do this in our programs is that at the end of every 30 days or the end of every month, this is what we're doing in Healing the Heroin. Every month we release the water in the grief bowl back to nature. It's the idea of composting emotion, composting loss, right? This is part of the ritual of why we bury people, why we cremate them, why we recommit, right? Ashes to ashes. You compost the water into Kat's asking, can you do this with fear? Yes, you can, of course. Fear is just a component of grief, right? I mean, I hope we all understand that like fear is real, and you can use it for that as well. You can release the water in your grief bowl as frequently as you would care to. We do it here in our programs like every 30 days or so, but certainly in this moment where there's going to be a lot of overwhelming grief that kind of takes us all over, I would very much encourage you to release it as it feels compelling to you. Yes, you keep the bowl with the water in it until you feel the need to release it. Ordinarily in our practices, so when we did this in Haven, for instance, which is all open for registration right now, one of the main month-long practices that you get in Haven is the grief bowl practice. It's one of 3 month-long practices, and then you get these daily prompts related to all of this. And every prompt asks you, for instance, if you have something to release it. There are options for this every day in that program. The grief bowl sits in your house for the full 30 days. And then at the end of the program, we release it. Every month right now, we are releasing it in Healing the Heroine. To me, this is a symbolic, but also an energetic practice that really makes a huge difference. And I was first introduced to this practice on a retreat, a women's retreat, like 2 years ago now, I think, where there was a lot of grief and trauma in the room, and the group as a whole did this. And then, what we ended up doing was releasing all of our grief into the same bowl and then releasing the bowl itself at the end. So, again, reminder, bowl of water. Please make it something that is meaningful to you, the bowl itself. Stones, seashells, things that will not dissolve, setting next to the bowl. And then periodically, as you feel overwhelmed, as you want to release something, grief, fear, anything along those lines, place it into the stone or whatever else you're going to place into the bowl. Place that into the bowl when you are ready. Do it intentionally. Do it ritualistically. Do it with meaning. And then from time to time, as it feels necessary, trust me, you need to listen to your own intuition on this, release the water in the grief bowl back to nature. Pour it out in your front yard, pour it out in your backyard. You can even pour it down the sink if you don't want to leave your house. And then replenish it, okay? So this is also part of this, is that you want to replenish the water that is washing away your grief, okay? It's very important to do these sorts of things. So to me, that is just something I wanted to offer to everyone in the community right now. And also to say this, Haven is open for registration right now. And again, so feel free to join us for that as well. That's GaiaLeadershipProject.com/Haven. Okay, so today's topics, and for some reason our numbers are dropping. I hope there's nothing wrong with the broadcast. Sorry, my friends. No, don't pour out the stones. Save the stones, okay? All right. Anyway, okay, so news for today. Well, all right, so we have a bunch of things going on that should not shock anyone. Bill Barr is trying to find a way to suspend constitutional rights while we're in the middle of this crisis. This is something that has to be passed legislatively. And there are very strong indications, of course, that he will not be able to effectively do this. If he tries, it will be challenged in the courts. However, this is one of those moments to stay aware, to stay awake, that they are going to maximize every opportunity to install authoritarianism in this country while we're in the middle of a massive health crisis. It does not surprise me. Hang on one second. Hey, guys, can you be quiet? See, we knew this was going to happen. They're going to take every moment to install authoritarian efforts while this is all going on. So don't fall asleep at the wheel. This is the other thing about this. We're all in the midst of an incredible amount of toxic stress. Right now, we're seeing more efforts to really limit they want to be able to detain people indefinitely, which is not permissible under the Constitution. And we're not going to, every indication is that the Senate and the House are not going to let them do that. But it's not like they're not going to make efforts to continue doing it. Okay. We have questions about remote voting by the House and the Senate. As we all know, Rand Paul was diagnosed with COVID over the weekend. Literally was swimming in the pool. Why it was still open in the Senate is ridiculous to me. He had lunch in the GOP Senate lunch, where they didn't suspend on Fridays. So like basically every member of the Senate GOP who was at that lunch was exposed to Rand Paul in the process. They need to allow remote voting now. They have not done it. as of yet. And that in and of itself is quite dangerous. We are in a position now where we have multiple members of the House of Representatives and one senator who has been who has tested positive. The other thing that's bizarre is that quite a number of the Senate GOP who were in that lunch have actually not quarantined themselves. Mitt Romney has, Mike Lee has, but this is, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. At this point, and quite dangerous. So remote voting needs to be put in place. However, the only people who can do that is the Senate itself, right? It's Mitch McConnell. So we've got a need right now for that, again, they are so focused on their own bullshit at this point that they're not doing the right thing by the American people. So that brings me to a really important point. This is yet again another moment where I want to say something as follows, okay? Please do not fall for the Republican talking points about what is happening here, okay? The Democrats did not vote for the stimulus package that McConnell proposed because it wanted to give a $500 million slush fund to Steve Mnuchin to dole out to corporations whenever they saw fit. And it also was designed to make sure that the poorest people in America got the least amount of money. They blocked it for all the right reasons. And, the Republicans claiming that this is somehow like, an effort to block relief to the American public are lying through their teeth. Yes, 500 billion. I'm sorry, 500 billion, not 500 million. So, one of the things here that we need to be aware of is that when they are trying to tell us that the Democrats are in the way, we need to understand what that means. Also just learned right before I went on the air this morning that there was a condition in this stimulus package that was designed to prevent money from going to healthcare facilities that provide Medicare. So basically what they're trying to do here is prevent the oldest and most vulnerable people in the country from getting the health care that they need because they're trying to prevent Medicare for all. So layers and layers here of needing to understand what's really going on so you don't parrot Republican talking points. I'm going to say one other thing here, by the way. The same is true of this talking point of where's Biden? Okay, I want to make something really clear to all of you, okay? That is a talking point that is originating from the Russians, the GOP, and the Bernie Bros, and everybody's in it together. There was a series of articles and tweets about this morning that very weirdly, one would think for the kind of socialist side of the Democratic Party, the Bernie Bros have gotten in bed with the GOP about this talking point to try to undermine Biden. And it's a Russian talking point, okay? Biden was on the air this morning. He has literally over the last, so he can address the nation on a daily basis. All of this stuff is not stuff that any one of us on the side of justice or who actually care about the future of American democracy should be parroting at any point. Biden has been here all along. The where's Biden thing is straight out of the Russian playbook. So again, I really want to caution you all about falling in line with these talking points without questioning who they benefit. Like, again, this is a message that we've been talking about on Resistance Live for 3.5 years. Don't repeat a talking point if you don't understand who it's designed to help. Okay. The only people who get helped right now by undermining Joe Biden's authority are the Russians and the president. That's it. Because he's the putative front runner. He's going to get the nomination. At this moment in time, if you're repeating that talking point, that's who you're benefiting. Okay. That's who you're benefiting. Guys, can you stop screaming? This is how it's going to be for the next little while. All right. So in any event, that's one thing that I just wanted to be very cautious and mindful about today. Please think about who benefits from the talking points that are out there in public. All right. The other thing I just want to say right now is that one of our followers reported that she was doxxed last night by a series of Bernie Bros who were upset about her comments about Joe Biden. Please remember that, sharing somebody's information on the internet is a way to expose them to violence. Okay. So again, here we need to be really careful. We need to be really, really careful about, all of these efforts. Okay. All right. There have been a series of questions about coronavirus reporting in Russia. So let me just say this. Okay. One of the reasons we have a little bit of a preview now in the United States, unfortunately, in our own government about reporting structures. Okay. So like, for instance, the CDC is not updating its numbers on the weekend because the president doesn't like the numbers. Okay. It's not like COVID is skipping Russia. It's crazy that I feel like I have to say that. All right. Like, there is nothing about the coronavirus that has somehow decided that if you live in Russia, you can't get it. All right. The issue here is that Putin doesn't want to appear weak. Okay. And so what that means is they are not reporting the cases that they have there, or they're not testing people. It's really that simple. And it's a standard authoritarian tactic. So don't assume that the numbers that you are seeing out of Russia are at all real. There is mass control of the press. There is mass control of the messaging. We do not know what they have in terms of testing. We do not know what is happening anywhere else. It is within the country of Russia. So please just don't worry about it. All right. Like, look, take it for what it is. It's authoritarian management of a crisis. It is an attempt to make Putin and Russia appear stronger than the rest of the world. And it's built on a foundation of lies. That's it. Okay. One other thing that I just want to mention here is that, these economic advisors like Gary Cohn, who was the second in charge of Goldman Sachs, and, we've seen various Republicans parroting this talking point right now, are now pushing forward to this back to work thing, this thing of like, the cure is worse than the cause. You saw the president tweet that last night. It was a talking point that was also on Fox News last night. They are trying an effort right now to get people, if they have not been symptomatic for 7 days, to go back to work. Okay. I just want to say this, that's going to kill people. It's going to kill people. And this idea that we are supposed to jumpstart the economy by putting sick people in masks and sending them back out into the workforce is awful. It's awful. It will fail. It will kill people. It's not going to flatten the curve. It's going to mean that the US is leading in COVID cases and deaths before we know it, which is going to happen anyway because of the president's negligence. Please understand that when they're talking about back to work, or they're talking about jumpstarting the economy, what they're talking about is worrying more about their own money than human lives. And again, this is something that we have to shout out at every chance we get. We are not anywhere near a peak yet in this country in terms of the number of cases. We're not anywhere near a peak in the context of deaths. Like, we're barely at the beginning of this thing right now in the United States. And the only way, I'm going to remind you all, the only way that China is currently getting back up on its feet is mass testing, containment, and quarantine. And they've been at it for 2 months. 2 months. So we have a long way to go before it is appropriate to have a conversation about getting the economy back on its feet and jumpstarting everything. And in fact, I said this morning, and I'm not alone in this, there are people talking about this. Stephanie Rule was talking about it this morning on MSNBC. We need to shut the damn country down, close the markets, stop all student loan payments, stop all more everywhere, shut the banks, shut it down, shut the country down. Like, literally, that's the only way we're going to contain it. If we don't have adequate testing, people have to stay home. They can't be in a position where they have to leave their houses because they've got to pay rent in a week. So we are in a position right now where, like, the worst is by far yet to come. And I just want to encourage all of you who are, staying at home to continue doing that, please, to the extent that you are able. I'm hearing some real horror stories right now about people being forced to go to work by employers claiming that they are essential employees when they're not, being threatened with the end of their jobs, the loss of their employment. It's really at a point right now where we have to choose to do the right thing, and I'll just add, from my own perspective and where we are right now, we're not in a place where we can even remotely consider the idea of people heading back out into the workforce, unless they're like, medical professionals, or, really essential workers, like, farm workers who are picking food so the rest of us can survive. So, again, we really need to be in a position where we're understanding the reality of where we are. We had a bunch of questions about the detention camps. So let me just say this. One of the things that is the most tragic about where we are right now is that they're keeping people in immigrant detention, and ICE is still rounding people up. And this is true, by the way, not just in human detention camps related to immigration, but also in terms of prisons. There are some limited instances right now where low risk nonviolent offenders are being released, thank the gods. But the prison system and our immigration detention camps are ripe for incredible outbreaks that are going to kill thousands and thousands of people. It really, at this point, is just an unacceptable situation. I mean, my view at this point is that everybody who is in an immigration detention camp should just be let out. Did you know, by the way, that 80% of the people who are currently in the Remain in Mexico program awaiting that mythical number that never gets drawn to get into the United States have sponsors in the US already? They have sponsors, family members, 80% of them, who are prepared to take them in and give them work. So, where we are right now with all of this is just, it's abominable and it's ludicrous and it's, crimes against humanity at this point. So, all right. That's where we are for today. It's going to get worse today. I just really want to encourage you all to watch Governor Cuomo. He briefed again this morning. It is, at least to some extent, soothing to hear him talk about not just the logistics of how it's being managed in New York City, but also the emotional impact. He is really leading very well right now. I know there are a lot of people who are not fans of Andrew Cuomo, but I will just say that I feel like right now he is in a position of demonstrating what leadership should look like in a crisis. And it is incredibly important that we follow leaders who ground us and who are stable and who are giving us good advice. He's one of them right now. Gavin Newsom is another. The president's daily briefings are insane. They are insane. Like, he literally was laughing at Mitt Romney having to be cracking nasty jokes about Mitt Romney having to be in quarantine yesterday. So from where we are right now, I just want to encourage you to find grounding wherever you can. The reason why I offered you that practice at the beginning of the broadcast is because I want you to be able to do that in your own home, as well as by following leaders who really can support you. And we're going to be here every day, hopefully keeping everybody grounded as much as we can. I'm also just going to add, the Calm app, the Headspace app. For those of you who are Peloton subscribers on the app, you do not need a bike to subscribe to it. There are incredibly good, soothing meditation and mindfulness practices on all of those apps right now. Please monitor your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health very closely right now. All of it is connected, and it's just incredibly important at this moment in time that we do our very best to stay healthy and grounded for one another and for the people that we love and for our families. Amy Klobuchar's husband was diagnosed this morning. David Latt, who is the founder of Above the Law, who I have read for, 20 years, is on a ventilator right now in New York City. There's going to be a lot more of this coming up in the coming days. And some of us are not going to make it. And so we just need to be prepared at this point for what's coming. And, I really would just want to encourage everyone to please stay connected to one another, stay connected to your loved ones, call them, speak to them, tell the people that you love them, remind the vulnerable that they matter and that we are here for them, and do your best to stay in a space that feels safe to you. That means turning off the TV when you need it. It means if you feel like you're losing control, find ways to get grounded. 5 deep breaths work really well. My kids have been taught this in school and they use it all the time. It's just all of the things that you need to do right now to take care of yourself. All right. Much love to all of you. I will be talking to all of you, of course, this week, and stay sane and healthy. Stay sane and healthy. All right. Much love, everyone. I will talk to you soon. Okay. Thanks. Bye.